Welcome to the Loonie Lineup Podcast with your hosts, Colby Honey Badger Chawley and Mike the Wolf Young.
What's up, our fellow lunatics, and welcome to our very first episode of the Loonie Lineup Podcast. Now you might be asking, what is the Loonie Lineup Podcast? Well, it's two Canadian football fans bringing a unique perspective on the NFL with sharp analysis, fantasy and betting insights, and a touch of humor. So, if any of that piques your interest, strap in and join us on our journey. In today's episode, with the kickoff of the season happening this past Thursday, we'll be filling you in on some big off-season acquisitions to take note of, some highlights from the NFL draft, some new technology brought into the NFL this year, and some rule changes for the 2025 season. So, with that, let's begin. Colby, any big off-season moves you want to talk about?
Well, right off the hop, we had a draft that was kind of famously a little bit stale in the quarterback department. So, a lot of the movements that we started seeing kind of happened in free agency as opposed to the draft. That being said, there's a lot of great players who went in our draft, but I would say as far as acquisitions go this offseason, one that really interests me is Davante Adams with the Rams. He's kind of been through the ringer the past 2-3 seasons here, getting kind of stuck on Oakland and then getting forced over to the Jets with old Aaron Rodgers there. We thought that was going to be a good move for them, considering that, the chemistry that they had. The New York Jets were just too big of a disaster to make that work. And so what I'm curious to see is what he's going to be like on the team with Sean McVay, who's an offensive genius, since Matt Stafford, who right now you could argue is in the same tier as Aaron Rodgers all time. Same amount of Super Bowls, passing completion percentage, everything like that is very, very comparable. But a bit more winning as of late from our boy Matt Stafford. That offense is stacked. And Puka Nacua there takes a bit of pressure off him. He doesn't need to be the number one guy. I actually expect Adams to be pretty high end this year as far as that's a top 10 receiver in my mind.
Yeah, no, all good notes. I definitely agree. My only concern with Adams, I guess if we're going to be bringing in a fantasy perspective on that, is will Adams actually get the target share? Will he take it away from Puka? Is it going to be too many weapons, or is it going to be just the right amount of weapons to have fantasy production?
Yeah, that's been brought up quite a few times with the Nacua situation. I think we've seen the Rams historically move the ball around well, and he's a unique talent. I think that we see McVay utilize him in the best way possible. There's age concerns, but I don't see it yet. He didn't really lose a step. He had a couple plays last year in New York where it looked like vintage Adams, right? And now we're going to have a guy that knows how to scheme probably the best he's ever had. His career as far as offense goes. Obviously, when Aaron Rodgers and Adams were together in Green Bay, they were pretty damn proficient and arguably the top duo in the league. But I see McVay knowing how to use this guy and still getting Nacua the ball. It's going to be confusing for defenses to keep up when you have two big weapons on the outside. Does it open up a run game for them now? You got two speedsters, two guys that are very good at athletes that can catch the ball anywhere, run any route. Does it open up that? I think that becomes a very challenging offense to deal with now. Seeing all the weapons that are there, and they have one of the greatest offensive minds in football right now at the helm. So,
I agree. I think my two big offseason moves that I've been kind of paying attention to is one, and I don't think this guy is getting enough credit for the stuff that he's had to deal with within his career, is I think Justin Fields going to the Jets, with them also having a new head coach with Aaron Glenn. I think that's going to be an unreal kind of spot for him, and I think it's going to work out really well for him. He's not going to be battling with Russell Wilson anymore for that starting spot. And as we saw kind of last season, it was a lot of he kind of got taken out a little bit early, I think. I do agree that Russell Wilson did play well, but Justin Fields wasn't playing bad when he got taken out. It was just kind of luck of the draw, and they needed to see what both quarterbacks had with their lineup. So it was just an interesting thing. I think with his mobility and with the Jets defense that they have, as well as the weapons that they have there, I think that Justin Fields is just going to prosper.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that Fields was a victim of circumstance for the past several seasons. The classic one just being Chicago, just throwing him into the fire. He was not ready yet. The talent's there, speed's there, size. He just wasn't ready to take that whole load on that, Chicago dumped on him, basically. Chicago's famously had a horrible O-line for the past several seasons. This offseason, much better, improvements in acquisitions. But Fields, I agree, doesn't get enough credit. And I also think that going into a situation where you're unequivocally the starting quarterback, and, we've seen enough of him where they know what he's good at. They know what he can do, can't do. I'd like to see how they're going to adjust with that. I think that I agree. Fields is a good one. Yeah. I mean, another one I've kind of caught my eye this season or this offseason was the Jair Alexander going to the Ravens. Jair Alexander's been very, very good. The Ravens didn't make many adjustments on offense this offseason. They're trying to compete in a bit of a smarter fashion, I think. We've seen them offense is possibly one of the best in the league. Top 3, I'd say, for sure. Now we're going to see one where they can maybe not have to shoot out as much. Maybe we get a defense that, because if we're going to get an air raid offense that's going to put up 30 to 35 points a week, perhaps we don't need to worry about getting 30, 35 points a week, because if the other side's secondary, their defense starts performing much stronger, possibly that takes a bit of a stress load off of Jackson and the boys on offense.
Yeah, I agree, actually. And it's funny that you bring up the Ravens, because as much as they didn't make many offensive changes in this offseason, one big offensive change, and I think this guy he's still ready to go. And I don't think that he started to get a little bit of the rumbles going that he's not that guy he used to be. And there is some truth to that. But the one thing that sticks with DeAndre Hopkins moving to the Ravens is he still has god-like hands. Like, that man can catch anything, and he will catch anything. So I think having that option for Lamar Jackson being a weapon with all the other talent that they have on offense, I think that's a dangerous thing. That makes second and third downs a lot more easy and a lot less reliant on Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry using it with their legs. So I think with having that weapon of sure hands for the 5 to 15 yard gains is going to be a massive outcome for their offense.
I've never had a doubt about Hopkins ever. Everywhere he goes, he seems to be making an impact, and he's certainly someone that got to keep eyes on. He's the guy in one-on-one that you don't want to be up against if you're in the secondary, just because of his athleticism, his jump, like his vertical's insane, his hands are incredible. Basically, you can just chuck the ball the guy's way, and there's a more than likely chance he's going to win it, especially in a one-on-one situation. Ravens have had enough, success moving the ball around. Last year was probably one of the best in the league, maybe next to Buffalo and Philadelphia for moving the ball around. They're going to find ways to get him the ball. There's a reason they signed him. Jackson probably had something to do with that. It's undeniable what he can do at this point. Age is one thing, but it's not like they're going to be throwing this guy into a workload number 1 spot. With Flowers there, Bateman still kicking around. I like to see that this is going to work out well.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And just like you said, once you throw that ball up in the air, 90% of the time he's coming down with it. So that is.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about what you think about the Texans' backfield right now? So Mixon goes out with the injury last year, and obviously last year Chubb, missing time due to his pretty tragic leg injury there.
Yeah.
I see it working, but I'm also skeptical. Right? We have 2 very good backs. I still think
good backs, but with also a very different run style. So
agreed. Yeah.
I think that's what's going to be their benefit. And they also, Not to cut you off there, but I think with a lot of the stuff that they have in their backfield is going to be like Chubb is that third down power back. Mixon's that guy that can find that space and get open and get them the yards down the field that they have. And with both of them being available for them in their backfield now, and this is coming from a Colts fan, so this is kind of hard to say good things about, but with them having that dynamic power duo that are both tried and true professional and very competent running backs, the fact that their load share is going to be cut pretty much in half is the way that I'd expect them to go with it, and kind of do a similar style to Detroit's running back scenario last year where not one guy is taking the entire load. So one, that brings up less injury chance, which is absolutely massive. Maybe it'll cut down on fantasy value just because you don't know who's going to end up punching the ball in. But I think in a long-term kind of stable environment, I think both running backs are going to excel. And yes, Nick Chubb had those detrimental injuries and they were awful. And God, I feel bad for the guy. But he wasn't even 100% when he returned last year. Now he's had he's had the offseason to recover. And I think with the combination of him and Mixon going back there, I think that that's going to be a running back duo to be afraid of.
I agree. And, we saw a major regression from CJ Stroud last year. Do we see CJ Stroud kind of get his mojo back this season? I think that what we saw happen is a classic example of guy comes out flying out of the gate, overachieves by quite a margin, and then now we get a full year of tape on him and we have a major regression. Obviously, the Texans were riddled by injuries last year. The regression, though, I don't think can necessarily be completely blamed on that. It just seemed like he was getting swallowed. Even if those guys were healthy, do you see him get much better? What are your thoughts on CJ Stroud?
Well, honestly, I'm on the little bit of the opposite take. Not entirely, but I just think that with the help that he now has in the backfield, I think that that's going to terrify defenses in the sense where they're not going to be as aggressive towards him. It's going to give him a little bit more time, and I think we're going to see a little bit more of the 2 year ago CJ Stroud that we saw. And I think that's going to pull in his favor. I don't my issue with him is, yes, he did regress, and it kind of came out of nowhere because he started off the season strong, but he was also, like you said, they did have injuries with the receiver core. They had injuries. They were riddled with injuries in the offense, and that's a tough thing to deal with, especially when your number one guy goes, then your number two guy goes, then your number one guy shows up for a little bit, but still not quite there. Injury plague is one of the hardest things to come back from in football in general, whether it's offense, defense, whatever position you're at. You're losing a key component of something that you kind of ended up relying on during your entire season. So without those weapons, it's hard to retaliate and fix that problem. So anyone's going to see a regression. It's just a matter of how mentally strong that guy is and will he come back from it. And I think that, yes, maybe he's not a top 10 quarterback now in a fantasy value or even just in the league, but I do think that he's going to be better than last season.
Yeah, I would agree. And I guess the next point we can kind of make these aren't exactly transactions that have happened yet, but appear to be imminent. We have two major stars in the NFC East division. Micah Parsons has now officially requested a trade. It's been a long offseason of him trying to get a deal done with Dallas. Geriatric Jones doesn't appear to want any part of that as far as maybe paying him what he was worth. It just seemed like at no point did it ever seem like it was getting close to having that deal done. He's a polarizing player. I absolutely hate the Cowboys as an Eagles fan. But that being said, Micah Parsons now is going to be leaving the division. And now we're looking at Terry McLaurin, who has now requested a trade.
Exactly. And just to touch on Parsons first here, though,
sure,
is with Parsons, I think everything, I don't think that Parsons is going to be sticking around, but I think the nail in the coffin there was Jerry Jones making a joke of it. When he made that tweet that was something along the lines of, the fans didn't start chanting your name like they did CD last year. If I was Micah Parsons, I'd be like, you're making a joke of my career right now, so why would I want to work and play for you? That was kind of the nail in the coffin to be like, why am I here?
Yeah, well, I mean, Parsons has been pretty vocal and clear about his Mike McDonald, or his love for Mike McDonald. And then more notably as well is now Seattle has now acquired Adam Durden, who previously was his defensive line coach in Dallas. Now he's raved about Durd for, couple seasons now, saying that he'd love to play for him again. Now he's departed and he's in Seattle. I think that we see a very realistic possibility Micah Parsons ends up in Seattle. It's a great move for Seattle. They made a good moves on offense to, let's take a step. We take Sam Darnold, pay him a Baker Mayfield contract. Guy threw for over 4,000 yards last year. Massive touchdown production. But now let's get something on the other side of the ball, right? They have Cooper Kupp on the offense as well. An underrated move, I think. A lot of people are hating on it because of the age of Kupp and obviously the regression we've seen since he's been back. His durability is a bit of an issue. I still think it's a good thing to get these young guys. JSN being almost mentored by him seems excellent to me. They're both similar styles. I could see Seattle making a good push this year. But if Seattle ends up getting Parsons, that's a big slap in the face to Dallas, who's already just been the topic of so much turmoil this offseason. And it just appears, and it's the talk of the town. I mean, Jerry doesn't seem to be in the same progressive forward thinking that all these other GMs are. He's scared to pay players. That's been a thing for a while. And the ones that he does pay, it appears that he overpays. I think we can all agree that Prescott, at the time of the signing, probably not a bad deal. He's playing really well. Now it's starting to seem like it's kind of hurting them. Even with the CD negotiation, it seemed like that went for quite a while, but they got it done. But to not pay a guy on the defensive side of the ball, who's arguably one of the best in the league, is tough to see. But it's also that, when you own the richest sports franchise on planet Earth, which it is, you got a bit of a chip on your shoulder, right? And you're kind of holding on to the things that happened back in the 90s and stuff like that. It's a bit of a FU mentality of don't tell me how to do my job kind of thing. But that being said, there's got to be a bit of give and take there. Yeah. I feel like that puts them in a bit of a bad position this season. George Pickens going there, is that a good signing or not? I don't necessarily think so. I think if the Steelers let that guy walk, but Tomlin has been famous for doesn't put up with BS, right? Pickens being as talented as he is, to just let him go or trade him away, what does that say about that guy?
Well, and yeah,
now,
it's the
does
whole
he go there
argument.
with a bit of a course, right? Does he go there and actually, he could be possibly one of the best second receivers in the league next to CD. But this goes back again to my point about the Ravens. The Ravens actually, their offense is a proven weapon, right? But now, the Cowboys offense, clearly talented, but they didn't have the juice that team had. I think that translates to this season. Ravens offense is going to be great. They've improved their defense. It balances that out a bit more. The Cowboys seem like a bit of an unorganized mess in that sense. So I'm curious to see where that ends up going. Did you have any other players that you want to touch on that really caught your eye as far as
there's a couple
free
things,
agents or trades?
Yeah, there's a couple things before we move on to the next segment here that I just wanted to touch on. And the first one being when you brought up Cooper Kupp there. And you and me, we have very differing opinions here. And it's not that I think Cooper Kupp's bad, and it's not that I think that he's a bad fit, and I do think that he's going to be a phenomenal mentor for JSN. Like you said, they have very similar play styles. But as we've seen over the years, historically, receivers that hit the age of plus 30 have been traded have a continuous, I think it's a 10% success rate of being even close to what they were before. Don't quote me on that, but it's low. It's definitely low. And as soon as a player hits that age of 30 and then gets traded to another team, it's monumental. It's such a hard thing to do, one, to fit into a new system, and it takes a special player to be able to do that. So I'm a little bit worried about Cooper Kupp. I'm not reaching for him personally in any of my fantasy leagues, and my opinion might change, but as of right now, I just don't see it being the right move. As a team standpoint, and is it going to be good for the team, especially with Sam Darnold now moving there with Cooper Kupp and JSN? They do have the weapons, and I do think it's going to be a good thing, because now JSN can't be double covered. That would be dumb by a defense to double cover him when you have a Cooper Kupp on there. So I think as a team standpoint and as making their best push for their best season, I think great. But from a fantasy standpoint, I don't think I can bring myself to getting him. And then the second point,
Yeah,
go
I
ahead.
could agree with that. No, go ahead. I was just kind of going off your point there.
Yeah, and then the second thing I wanted to bring up was, as you brought up Terry McLaurin earlier, and I kind of cut you off there, so that was my bad. But I think with that, like, I don't know what they're thinking. Yes, they're like, oh yes, now we have Debo, but like Debo's a multi-tool, and yes, he's a phenomenal multi-tool, and yes, he's a phenomenal player. But Terry McLaurin got them out of some rough jams last year, and yes, he didn't have the most catches and the most yards or anything like that. But when you needed Terry McLaurin, he was there for them. He got them the touchdown that they needed. He prevented them from having to kick the ball off, having to punt the ball away. He was that guy that was their safety net. And with Brian Robinson Jr., he wasn't the guy to help them with those 1 yard 3rd and 1s. They ended up having to rely on their passing game a lot, or Jaden Daniels having to run the ball too. So I think that, in my opinion, I think Washington would be dumb to let go of Terry, especially when you acquire Deebo Samuel. I think that combination would be unreal there, and I think it would just up. I think Jaden Daniels' fantasy value is going to drop significantly if Terry McLaurin's not there.
I 100% agree.
And if he does stay, and if they can get that chemistry and everything going with Deebo using him as the multi-tool, I think that's an offense to be terrified of.
I think you need to pay him. I think you just need to pay him. You got to pay him. It's the way it's going to be. After the success you have in a season like that with a rookie quarterback who comes out flying like that and immediately not only increases McLaurin's value, but everybody else in the offense. Look at the reemergence of Zach Ertz.
Yeah.
Crazy, right? Haven't heard his name since, 4 years ago?
Yeah, exactly.
But, and all of a sudden now he's good, right? So I feel like if you mess with that formula too much, and I agree, I think Debo is a good player. I think he's a bit of a nightmare in fantasy. You're going to get weeks he's going to get 25, 30 points. You're going to have weeks that he doesn't get anything. He's not a workhorse receiver. He's a very good scheming tool, and he's a very good Swiss Army knife. But he is not somebody you can rely on, I think, for 120 catches and 1,400 yards, which is, I think, close to what McLaurin had last year. McLaurin was scoring touchdowns, and I don't know. If they let him walk, I'm curious who picks him up because he's a good addition. But also, how do you fill that, void?
Exactly.
Right? So,
and then moving on though, I think there are a couple other off-season things that need to be touched on here. And I'm not a Bears fan, but I think this is going to be one heck of a fun offense to watch this year because them getting Ben Johnson as their new head coach. And for those of you who don't know, Ben Johnson is the offensive coordinator of Detroit last year. And Detroit, in my opinion, was the funnest team to watch last year.
By far.
Their playbook was so aggressive, so fun, so wide, so variable. There was so many things that were fun to watch. You never knew which O-lineman was going to catch a touchdown. One
of the things about those guys as well is they just did not have a mercy button, which I kind of respect in the NFL.
Same here.
I do think there's a bit of a stop for that. But at the same time, as a diehard Philly fan, watching us stomp on Kansas City's throat and not let up off the gas was a special sight to see. How many people were cheering for the Eagles and just to wipe those guys and not just beat them, humiliate them.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, exactly.
I think that killer instinct for a head coach offensive coordinator or a head coach, it sets a tone in the culture of we don't get by, we stomp on them.
Exactly.
I think it's so important.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that
because nobody else is going to give you a spare inch. So
no one's going to give you a spare inch. And then also the times that you do want to draw the defense offside on a 4th down, it's so easy to do now because you're so expected to go for it. So if you're looking for those 1 or 2 yards, if you do a hard count, you're almost guaranteed to get those yards from a penalty or just running it yourself because you're so proficient at it and you do it so often that you'd be dumb not to. And I think also Dan Campbell's going to rub off on Ben Johnson a lot and his mentality.
I think so.
I think that the combination of Ben Johnson getting the freedom to be a head coach And a little bit in training camp, the conditioning that he's been doing with those guys, like he sat his entire starting team because they weren't lining up properly. They didn't know the playbook properly. Like, he's going to be an aggressive, like,
it's got to be a no nonsense approach, and I think he's going to bring that
approach, boots to the pavement. So I think Ben Johnson going to the Bears, and then also with the talent that they have there with DJ Moore and Roma Dunze, and I think Swift's going to be one of those sleepers that people are going to have to look out for. I think that Chicago is going to be a fun team to watch this year. I think
we can totally agree that everyone wanted more from Caleb Williams last year, but undeniable talent though. And he was the most sacked quarterback in the league last year?
Yeah.
And that was an offensive mess.
Exactly.
So like, how do you let that go? Like, they weren't letting him sling it. Perhaps he wasn't ready and they didn't want to let him sling it. But, year 2, he's got now going into a full camp again. He stayed healthy, so it seems like the work ethic is there from Williams. The athleticism is there. The arm talent is there. I could see him making a big step forward, possibly like an opposite of like what happened with, say, CJ Stroud. I think that was the ground floor. I think we saw.
Yeah.
His ceiling is so high. I'd love to see him do good there. Not only just because I have a soft spot for the Bears because they've been getting their ass kicked by Green Bay for 20 years. But, I'd like to see an exciting Bears offense again. We got a glimpse of it for a short period of time with Fields.
Yeah.
Very short. I know we were talking really good about Fields before this, but Williams is unquestionably a better quarterback overall, I think. Maybe not now, but he certainly will be, I think. Ceiling's higher.
I think so too. But as you said, there's one more offseason thing that I want to talk about here, and it's just the acquisition of Aaron Glenn going to the Jets. And again, another Detroit coach going over to the Jets. And I think that the big spark that I think is going to happen from this is, one, they just acquired Fields, like we talked about earlier. But also, I think this is going to bring back the talent of Breece Hall. I don't think he's not going to have Aaron Rodgers' ego to deal with anymore. And I think that's such a huge thing. And I just think that he was getting underutilized and used in the wrong ways last year. And if you remember Breece Hall a couple of years ago, my God, like, there's a reason he was a top 5 pick last year. There was a reason for that. And what happened? Aaron Rodgers came in. They stopped going to him. They did get more receiving weapons. But I think Aaron Glenn going there, with a combination of Justin Fields, I think the Justin Fields, Breece Hall, having 2 excellent runners in your backfield, I think that's going to be something that people are going to have to look out for. And I think the combination of those two is just something that's not being talked about enough.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at what's happened at their quarterback position for the last few years. Taking Zach Wilson as high as they did obviously did not turn out well. No. That did not age well at all. What is he, the 3rd string in Denver or something now? I don't even know.
Who knows where he is right now? Like,
yeah, he's combing his hair on a beach and taking pictures of himself. But yeah, I mean, I do agree. It's going to be an interesting one to see.
All right,
because that Jets offense is talented. Garrett Wilson. There's a lot of people not giving Breece Hall any credit. I've seen reports saying that they're thinking Braylon Allen is going to take over, and I don't see that happening.
No.
At the absolute very least, maybe we see a bit of a split backfield, but that's to say that Braylon Allen's just going to take over as a workhorse there. I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all.
All right, I think we need to move on here though.
Sure.
So we've talked a little bit about off season. Let's get into another big thing that always happens in every off season. One of the most exciting days in April, in my opinion. Let's talk about the 2025 draft.
Sure. Well, like we mentioned before, famously one of the driest crops of quarterbacks coming through, especially with next year potentially being a very, very good crop. So I was curious to see what a lot of these guys were going to do. Cam Ward going first overall.
Actually, before you get too far into it here, though, the way they started off the draft this year, I just need to touch base on this because the fact that Roger Goodell came rolling in on a bicycle and people were still booing him. Oh my God, that was hilarious.
I think Goodell has become a master at taking boos, though. Like it's almost like he almost enjoys it now. Like, why would you be like visually upset about it? Make it as ridiculous as humanly possible. I think that was his plan, and I think he succeeded.
Oh yeah,
hats off to Roger.
Yeah, but like the icing on the cake was Lil Wayne strolling in on the bicycle at the tail end of all those Green Bay players. Lil
Wayne has been making his ways all over sports, walking out with Dustin Poirier at the UFC. month ago.
Yeah, sorry, I just needed to touch base on that before we get into it. But yeah, as you said, Cam Ward, dry quarterback season for the drafts. Cam Ward going first overall. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Ward going first overall, to me, was just the safest play.
Yep.
Now, there's a lot of people that speculate that, no, he's not the most talented one. What it does seem clear and unanimous is that he was the most ready.
Yep.
Tennessee needed a quarterback, right?
Yeah.
An upgrade. And another thing that I've really noticed this offseason, not only with what people are saying about him as far as reports out of camp and everything, is his maturity. What I've been hearing and seeing is that he is the first one in the building at 5 a.m. and they have to tell him to leave at night. He's a hard worker and he's very professional. I actually see these guys are the ones that with the most success. We see what happened with Baker Mayfield when he went first overall, major chip on his shoulder, bit cocky in interviews, you know, kind of one of those attitudes, and it took him a bit of time to get going. I'm not saying Cam Ward's going to win Rookie of the Year. I think we see a guy that could have a very positive trajectory because of the work he's putting in. I liked his quote, actually. He had an interview recently where they asked him about it, and they said, you know, where does that drive come from to be at the arena every day at 5 a.m. and the last one to leave? And he said, you know, his dad worked a job that he hated and got up at 4:30 in the morning for. And he says, if I had a job that I love that doesn't even feel like a job, why wouldn't I get up that early too? Right?
Exactly.
And I like that perspective of it. I thought that was mature. So I like seeing that. I'm curious to see what happens with him though, because he's got all the attributes you want. There's a lot more exciting options there, but I'm curious to see how he ends up performing. I don't think that we're going to see a guy that's going to get rolled over in this league. I think that we'll see him, you know, take bumps and bruises, but he's going to learn from them because of his maturity and get better every year. So
yeah, and that brings up a good point though too. Like his work ethic and his maturity are one of the most crucial things for the rookie quarterbacks to come in with, and most of them don't. But also it brings up my argument of I don't like Tom Brady had a quote not too long ago, and he said like he doesn't understand why all these teams are starting their quarterbacks the moment they draft them. And that's the worrying thing is like these players need time to develop. Like I think it was 1 to 2 seasons before Tom Brady ever saw the football field, and it wasn't because they planned on it; it's because he had to go in. And a lot of these guys, they need the time to develop. They need the time to understand the NFL mentality. They need it's NFL and college football are such different beasts, and for very different reasons. So, like I'm very curious to see how Cam Ward does, because he's definitely one of the quarterbacks in this draft season that's actually going to be starting. I think, anyways. I don't see.
I think he's the clear-cut one. It appears,
but it's just one of those things. Like because he does have that the maturity, the mentality, and he's ready to go. He's ready to put the work in. So I think he has the potential for success being a starting rookie, or like Jaden Daniels last year. There's certain few that can come through and start a season ready to go right after the draft. But it's far and few in between. And I think a lot of times too many teams are trying to start these guys right when they come off. I think just give them time to develop. And my biggest case for that right now is, and I know I'm going to get a lot of heat for this and a lot of disagreement, and I don't even fully think he's quite ready yet, but he's starting to show it, is my boy Anthony Richardson. I think that he's starting to understand that. And that's the most important part is, yes, he's made a lot of mistakes. Yes, he's done a lot of dumb things, but he's starting to understand that it's the work ethic that's going to get you there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, his arm talent's insane too, right? But obviously, you know, like the power is there. We need to get accuracy down now, right? So does that become a major focus in the offseason? I think more than likely. Oh, yeah. To build off your point, what Tom Brady said about developing players, and I know we got a few other guys to talk to that went way before this guy, Jalen Milroe in Seattle. It is a clear cut. We are going to take time and develop this kid. There's a lot of reports saying this guy's as athletic as Lamar Jackson. Yeah. You know what? Is this a smart pick by Seattle to just take a guy? Let's pay Darnold to take the load, and we will develop Milroe underneath him, start to build a dynamic, possibly make some packages for this kid, but do not give him the keys of the kingdom yet, especially in a place like Seattle where the fans are as important as anything there because of the noise that comes in those stadiums. They are a team that does not want to regress right now. No. So have a solid offense. Let's teach this kid for a couple years. What if we get blown away by Jalen Milroe? come 2027, 2028, right?
Exactly.
Darnold's deal will be up then, right? Do we get an injury this offseason or this season, knock on wood, because I like Darnold, but does he even start then? We don't know, right? But he's got the talent.
Yeah, there's so many things up in the air there, and I think they're doing it smart. I think by doing that, they're avoiding that rebuild the slump. They might not be the top or the bottom, but they're building it so they're just can continuously get better. And I think that's such an important thing to do. So that's huge.
Well, building off that as well, talking about disasters at the quarterback position early, let's talk about Cleveland's quarterback room. What a shit show it is. We have, what is it, 4 of them? There's Flacco, Shedeur Sanders, Gabriel, and Kenny Pick Six.
Yeah. Oh, Kenny Pick Six. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Kenny Pick Six is so, like, I don't know. Like, if you're Cleveland, you take Gabriel in the 3rd round, and then you take Shedeur in the 5th.
Yeah.
Why? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh man, I was scratching my head for a lot of it. I had to do a lot of research.
Is this just them taking an advantage of like an opportunity that they didn't think would happen? Did they just?
I think
does ownership step in?
I had to I was researching a lot. Was like what's going on? Why isn't Sanders getting drafted? And now, to be honest, I still don't 100% know the answer. There was a lot of talks about it being because of his dad's attitude. There's a lot of things going on with that, and I was just like, but that's not. The dad and the son are different people, so you can't fully do that. But I do think that Sanders has that chip on his shoulder, and I think a lot of people were worried about that.
Well, the biggest one I heard is that an insider, an anonymous insider who did one of his draft interviews, did come out and say it was the worst interview he had ever done.
That's true.
At the combine.
Yeah.
And that's supposedly, true. And again, it's all speculation and an anonymous source, but he supposedly in the interview had his headphones on around his neck playing music and basically said, if you don't take me, you're idiots, or something like that. Failed the interview with flying colors, so to speak.
That's true, actually.
Do a lot of these mature teams and mature front offices even bother with that? Who is willing to bother with these? Cleveland. Look at Johnny Manziel. Look at what's the jersey that they got with 40 quarterback names on it in the last 15, 20 years? They just can't sort it out.
But you bring up a good point, though, because I think this might have been a bit of a reality. I think this actually...
Perhaps.
Now that you're bringing this up, this could be secretly smart by Cleveland.
Maybe.
And the reason why I say that is, yes, Sanders got drafted in the 5th round. They got one with Gabriel in the 3rd round. Maybe it's like, you're not all that. You need to work for this. And maybe it caused him to put the work ethic in. Yes, he has the talent. Do you have the work ethic? Do you have the mentality? Do you have the maturity? And
the pay difference between the pay difference between a 5th round pick and a 1st round pick is astronomical.
Yeah, so giving him that reality check
exactly
is a big, maybe, like I said, maybe it might be secretly smart. Maybe their quarterback room. Maybe I think their smart move is keep Flacco, let Sanders learn from him, keep Sanders, and then but make Sanders don't let him start this year. You earn every bit of this now, because it's not like these guys, these quarterbacks in the 1st round that are getting $10-12 million signing bonuses. I think Shedeur is making $1.2 million this year or something in that range. Exactly.
So you know what? It's not like his attitude he can hold over their heads and be like, well, I'm your 1st round pick. There's nothing you can do. You're forced to deal with me. We don't have to deal with you. You're a 5th round pick, and we got 3 other guys kicking around here. Is he probably the guy to pick in that crop to start? Maybe, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think we see exactly what people think is going to happen is what we're going to see. We're going to see Flacco start. Cleveland's going to go on a bad stretch. Maybe they mix in, Kenny or Gabriel or something like that. I think down the stretch, Shedeur is going to play this year.
Yeah.
Now, What if Cleveland comes out with Flacco and has incredible success? What if he does well?
Yeah.
Right.
Who knows?
And maybe they just ride him and they say, hit the pine there, Shedeur.
Yeah. Exactly.
We don't need you. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the number 2 pick here, though, because this one's interesting as well.
Probably the most intriguing pick of the draft.
Yeah. Jacksonville trading up to get Travis Hunter at the 2. What are your thoughts?
I do think they overpaid. I do think Cleveland got a lot for that. That being said, Travis Hunter wouldn't have made it much far past that. If you feel like you can make something work with him, maybe it is worth it, right? You know, I think, Robinson Jr., with the success he had in his rookie season, obviously these guys know how to make new players work, right? Trevor Lawrence takes so much flack, right? But he has also been the victim of circumstance as well. Urban Meyer situation there. He's gone through might be his third or fourth offensive coordinator or coach even since he's been drafted. But Hunter's skill set is very interesting. And he's another one too, with a ton of reports of just his maturity and how humble he is. We're not seeing, and I feel like a lot of times this can change over time once you get the big contract and your ego gets a bit more boosted in the NFL over some time. But he does appear to be someone who's humble. I don't listen to the jib jab on, Instagram and all that of, people complaining that he's dancing in practice and stuff like that. I don't buy that as like a thing that is going to affect him. I think that the guy's having fun and he's performing when they're asking him to do it. And apparently they're getting him a lot more reps at the cornerback position. I do believe though, and again, we're not going to know until the season starts. He's going to major in wide receiver and he's going to minor in quarterback or cornerback. We're going to see him maybe possibly in some packages. I don't think right away though. It's a different beast. I think the cornerback position is possibly the second hardest in the NFL, next to the center and next to cornerback is probably like one of the tougher positions.
Yeah, like I'm a little bit indifferent on that. Like I think so. Yes, I agree that they overpaid for him for starters. But I think that they overpaid for a good reason, and my reason being is them. Like I think this is kind of like let's go back to football terms. Yeah, as a Hail Mary for Jacksonville. They have Trevor Lawrence. They have a couple running backs with Etienne and Bigsby. They have Brian Thomas Jr. as of last year, who obviously is incredible, and I think he's just going to get better. I don't think he's hit his ceiling yet. And now to throw Travis Hunter into that mix of offense, I think that's a pretty smart move on them. And you're also getting a defensive player out of it. Like, yes, you overpaid with what you gave away, but I think for what their needs were, I think it kind of made sense for them to do it. And again, being a Colts fan, that's right. Hard for me to say, like, we keep talking about all the teams that I shouldn't be talking about because they're in my damn division. But I think that they did a smart move there. And I think my my difference, like, I know that you said you think he's going to major in wide receiver and minor in cornerback. I think that might have some truth to it, but I also think that they would be really smart to not have him as a major and a minor, but have him as a major and minor team dependent. So if you have a team that has an incredible defense on that game, I think he should be majoring in wide receiver. But if you have a team that has an incredible offense, and you have teams like teams with the 2 wide receiver duo here that you need to cover 2 guys, you don't have to do it. Well, now you can major him in corner that game. So I think it's going to be
that's actually interesting you mentioned that.
And I think
that's actually, I never really thought of it that way. I thought of it like I never have given that much thought as far as like, maybe every game it just ends up different. So that's actually a real possibility. You want to be throwing curveballs as much as you can in the NFL. That actually would make sense. Yeah. I mean, he's going to be a dynamic player. His athleticism's there. It's just a matter of how can they scheme him into things. Yeah. I think now it's on the coaches. Exactly. Talent's there. He's ready. Now it's on the coaches.
Now it's on the coaches. Now it's to get them ready for the actual show, and let's see what happens.
Sure. Well, I'd like to move on now to my favorite pick of the first round.
I think this is both of our favorite pick here, so let's talk about him.
Our boy, running back from Boise State, Ashton Jeanty at the 6th overall pick. This is the most polarizing figure of the draft, in my opinion. Above the quarterbacks, above everything. He was busting all sorts of records at Boise State. Every weekend, you'd look on Saturday to check your apps to see what he was at. It was minimum 200 yards and minimum 3 touchdowns. Some games he's pushing 300 total yards. Yes, the speculation of him being, are these inflated numbers? right? Because of the fact that he wasn't in the top division, right? Competing against teams like that are much more, Georgia and stuff like that. But, if Genty would have even come close to the numbers he did at Boise State, say in Georgia, he might have been the first overall pick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But Vegas, I think, did an amazing job getting this guy. He's a great piece.
I think Vegas is a team that's kind of going to be fun to watch this year. Like with Brock Bowers, Geno Smith getting acquired there in the offseason.
Yeah. And I love Pete Carroll.
Pete Carroll going there. That's huge too. Jacoby Myers, like they have the weapons now on offense. Let's see what they do.
But even just watching Genty, does he not remind you of Lynch?
He reminds me of Lynch. I think it's hilarious that him and Gibbs both stand the same in the backfield. But
Chip Kelly fixed that though. He said, "No way, Jose. You stand normal."
That's true. But I think it's gonna be fun. I think the Raiders are gonna be a fun team to see. I think Genty's talent speaks for itself. I'm curious to see how he does in the NFL and see how he holds up. But it's gonna be fun.
Well, he appears to have basically no competition in that backfield.
Oh yeah.
And it seems like everyone talking about this guy says that no, he's the real deal.
Yeah.
And they're going to feed this guy the ball.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Like even in fantasy, you can get this guy in the late first round. I don't know. Like for
all
me,
the
I'm
mock
looking
drafts
at
I'm
that.
going at, he's going in the late first round or mid first round. Like he's not getting slept on, and I think that's for a reason. I think his skill set has shown for itself. And I think
it's been a big problem in fantasy is getting a hold of a workhorse running back. And I think this is a rare opportunity that one comes in, you get him in the late first.
Yeah, as a rookie too. And if those people with those dynasty and keeper leagues, like if you can get your hands on Genty, you're looking at a good next 5 years. So
no question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think here we got one more for you here. I know you had some thoughts on him. I do as well. We have the kind of tight ends that went this year. That actually decent little tight end crop.
Yeah, there's
between Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren. Obviously, your boys in Indy, they're getting Warren at 14.
Yeah, getting Warren at 14.
You thought he should have went higher. Explain yourself.
I thought Chicago should have taken him. I was jumping for joy when they didn't, and I saw Warren come our way. Maybe it's because Chicago had different needs at tight end, but I thought Tyler Warren was the clear number one tight end in this draft. His college career was great. He has the mentality. He has the hands. He has the skill. He has the running ability. Like I think
he's got a hell of a hairdo too. They should let him play in a leather vest. He's that cool.
Oh, exactly. He has the Clay Matthews hairdo going on. Like how can you not like the guy? But I think that with him, for my Colts, I'm pumped for him to be there. I think that if Richardson or Jones, whoever they have starting there, both of them will utilize Warren. But I think if I'm hoping that Richardson's a starter personally, and I think if he is the starter, and if any training camps is any indication, it's kind of starting to lean that way after he's come back from the injury. But I think that he is going to be able to be utilized in such a great way because, again, it comes back to having the dynamic duo of a running quarterback and a great running back. So if you have those two weapons, and now you have that option of the 5 to 15 yards going on, like that's a third weapon that the defense now has to take into consideration. And yet Tyler Warren's more of a receiving tight end than a blocking tight end. Yes, he can still block. He does it all, that's what I wanted there. But we haven't really had a receiving tight end on the offense for a while. So it took away a lot of the midfield as options. And it also left the midfield congested for Jonathan Taylor to run up there. So I think
and I mean Indy certainly has the weapons on the outside too. Pierce ended up being a good surprise last year.
Pierce is great. Josh Downs is going to be. I think he's better than Pittman in my opinion. I think he's the number one receiver at Colts. So if you have Josh Downs, Pittman, and Alec Pierce going there with the addition of Warren, if Richardson starts the running quarterback with Jonathan Taylor, I think we have a good offense. It's just, are we going to utilize it well?
I think the tools are there. We just got to put the glue together now.
Yeah, and did Richardson learn what he needed to learn this offseason? So it's a big question mark. It's going to be fun for me to watch. I'm sure I'm going to cry. I'm sure I'm going to laugh. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of stuff, but that's what football season's all about.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, one more offensive weapon we should talk about because this was an interesting one. First time in 23 years we have seen a team the Green Bay Packers actually take a receiver in the first round.
Yeah, and while the draft was
Matthew
in Green
Golden.
Bay. While the draft was in Green Bay.
The place went bonkers. It looked like the Rolling Stones walked on stage when that guy walked out. It was awesome. No, it was actually fun to see because
the gold suit too.
Oh yeah, he wanted to go there, I think. But getting Golden there, do we see him go? Do we see him become the number one right out of the gate? It seems like Green Bay's got a lot of talent at receiver, but no one that could take it to the next level.
No one's a star there.
No one's a star. I felt like every 3-4 weeks we were seeing, it's Dobbs, and then it's Watson, right? But now we get a guy, I think, that being the only first round talent in the building.
Yeah.
Do we get him to come out of the gate? Not much we've been hearing about him in the offseason.
No,
a lot of teams are quiet about their rookies, I find.
It is. It's been a common theme, and I think also like one of the big things that Green Bay does have is having Tucker Kraft there, and Tucker Kraft is, as we're just talking about tight ends, like having he did phenomenal last year. I don't think that he was, oh my God, but having that safety net of a good tight end is huge, and throwing in Matthew Golden into that mix with Dobbs and Watson, I think that's going to be, and Jordan Love, hopefully he stays healthy this year. I think it's going to be fun to watch. I think that, Matt, I think that was a great
loved seeing Jacobs succeed there. I really did seeing Jacobs succeed.
I had him on 2 of my fantasy teams.
I've always thought he was a good running back.
And he helped me get my distance that I needed last year. So he was one of the big reasons why I won one of my leagues last year. So
yeah, I'm not quite sure if we're going to see Jordan Love break into like a top 5 position at quarterback, but I do see him in that hunt. He's going to be between 5 to 10. Maybe we get blown away, but I just think there's too many other better situations and better quarterbacks that are performing at a high level.
Yeah.
Holding that top 5 spot. But, the weapons are there. He's definitely got the talent and the maturity. He's one of those other quarterbacks, touching off of one of our old points there, that actually did develop properly and then comes out the gate and he looks NFL ready, right? 3 years sitting behind Rodgers, 2 years, right? Whatever it was. Green Bay is an interesting one for me this season. One of those ones that doesn't seem like they lost much other than Jair Alexander on the backside on defense. The offense, though, picking up Golden, nice play.
Yeah, but we are starting to run out of time here, so there's a few other things I do want to touch about with the off-season madness. And so we'll move on a little bit from the draft here, and let's talk a little bit about the new technology in the NFL. And we saw a glimpse of it on the Hall of Fame game on Thursday. What are your thoughts on it? Have you seen it all? Do you know much about it? What are you thinking? The new
I didn't have a chance to see many of those highlights right now.
No, okay,
so I do know that it was a big discussion.
Yeah, so the Sony Hawkeye technology is what it is, and essentially they're trying to bring in something similar to what they do in tennis and things like that, where you know how if you're watching a tennis match and you see the ball land on the line, you can see the accuracy of it. Well, essentially they're bringing
computer generated almost. It looks like
they're using 6 8K cameras to judge the ball's position on the field for first downs. I didn't think that the way they showcased it on the Hall of Fame game was what it didn't show enough of it. It did show that the ball crossed the line, but they didn't show really it in action. I'm very curious to see how it works this year, and I really hope it takes away a lot of the dispute of the first downs.
And the human error.
I know I've lost countless bets because we didn't get the first down that we needed. So it'll be a curious thing, and I'm very curious to see what that brings to the NFL this year. So that's one of the big things.
Just when there's such fractions of inches, it just seems barbaric to me that you have people holding chains 10 yards apart and they're running in a line.
Yeah. And
the margin for error there could be a lot higher than people think. I'm sure people are going to argue, well, they've been doing it for 50 or 80 years, whatever the league's been around for.
Yeah.
But
and they still said that they're going to keep the chain system there, but it's not going to be the primary usage for discovering that. And I think that's huge. And as long as it's working well, I am very excited to see that for this season.
Tennis does a good job of it because it can literally be a fraction of an inch and they'll know the difference. So
exactly.
I hope it works. It'd be great to see it. I mean, it's like we see it in hockey that it's how many goals a year do we miss out on because there's just not enough evidence.
Exactly.
Right? Or it's covered or something like that. I'd be curious to see how this one works out.
Yeah. All right. Now, a couple last things, just some rule changes that happened this year. Nothing too crazy, but a couple things. We saw a little bit in the Hall of Fame game. Just the dynamic kickoff changing. So the landing zone is now from the goal line to the 20-yard line. And if they don't hit in that, then they get essentially penalized. So the opposing team gets to start on the 40-yard line instead of the 35 like last year.
Mm-hmm.
If it's downed and goes out of the touch, if it's a touchback or anything like that, stays in bounds, returned and down, then it's back to the 35-yard line. Obviously, if they run it back, it goes to where it goes. And anything out of the end zone goes back to the 35-yard line. So I think that's going to make it a little bit... They're trying to push for more kick returns, which is awesome. But they're also slowing down the speed of the kicking team coming at them to prevent injuries, which I think is a good thing too. I'm personally a fan of the new rules. I think it's going to be fun. And then also
it's the most violent play in maybe sports is the kickoff and kick return.
Exactly.
It is full speed. And like, I mean, we both played on kick return back in the day. It was like the second your guys catch the ball, you blow up whoever you find. Like that, your guy. It was fun, but it can go two ways.
I remember I used to be the kick returner, and those 3 to 5 seconds that ball was in the air, I think I stopped breathing every time. I just knew that I was about to get pummeled.
Yeah, I think that's where we probably saw. We see so many injuries there because of the speed of the play previously to how this new format has come out.
Yeah,
I do agree. I think it's a good safety measure, but makes it exciting. And they're fine tuning things, right? We made a big change last year with that, but I'm curious to see with this fine tuning if we just get a little bit more action out of it.
Exactly.
Right.
And then the other big kickoff rule change here that happened was the onside rule kickoff change. Instead of only being allowed to call for an onside kick in the fourth quarter if you're trailing, any team trailing within the game can now call for an onside kick. I think I don't know how much that's going to affect the game this year. Onside kicks aren't something that you see very often. It's kind of like we need something magical to happen, and the success rate isn't great. So who knows how much impact that's going to have, but it is a rule change. And then this is the rule change that I'm most pumped about, and it's your birds that proposed it, is in the postseason and regular overtime rules are granting both teams an opportunity to possess the ball regardless of the outcome of the first possession, subject to a 10-minute overtime period in the regular season. And I think that changes everything, because the amount of times that if you won the coin toss, your probability of winning was exponential compared to the team that lost the coin toss. So I think that's huge. I'm pumped for it. It's going to make for some fun overtime action this year. And it's not we lost if you lose a coin toss. So
sure. Yeah.
Any big thoughts on that?
It should have been that way always. It's just, that's why we see a lot of teams with, a few seconds left on the clock, down by 1 after scoring a touchdown to get 6 points, and they're tying it up. You're better off to rush it on and go for 2 to go for the win. And even if you don't have a high success rate with that play necessarily, if it's anything above 50%, you might as well be doing that rather than taking the 50% on the coin flip.
Exactly. So it's
Detroit being one of the more famous ones to do it. It does burn teams though. You can burn them. So I agree though. It should be an even playing field. It shouldn't matter who wins the coin toss. Both teams should get an equal opportunity.
Yeah. No, it's going to be fun.
Well, I guess one I want to bring up too while we're talking about Philadelphia is people trying to ban the tush push. And then unsuccessfully
I was
doing
waiting
so.
for you to pop up about that.
My favorite point about that, and this, again, we've talked about how much we love Detroit and how exciting they are. Every single team that played Philadelphia Eagles or that are going to play the Philadelphia Eagles this season voted against it, except for one, the Detroit Lions.
Yep, exactly.
Now, I respect that so much, not only because... No, I don't even think they're going to try it. I think that they're just kind of like, they're accepting of the idea that, like, you know what? We got to learn to stop that.
Yeah.
Right?
If it's a play in the NFL for a reason, there's nothing wrong with it. It's not a high injury risk play.
It's
or
a
anything
gangster
like that.
move, though.
It's
a gangster move to be the only team like, no, bring it on.
Yeah, exactly. We're here for the challenge. We're here to prove that we can beat anything that's already here. So I'm happy they didn't get rid of it. My only devil's advocate point of it is, I do a lot of parlays that involve player touchdowns, and having to choose between Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts getting a touchdown last year was my nemesis.
Well, you just got to take both of them in fantasy, and then you got nothing to worry
Well,
about.
that's fantasy, but betting, you can't. Like, I'm not going to choose both of them to get a rushing touchdown in a game.
Yeah, no, fair point.
Yeah.
But yeah, frustrating for sure at times. But yeah, no, I mean, obviously incredibly effective play. I don't think that there's any reason to ban that play. I can see why people are bringing it up because they call it unfair. Well, guess what? Everyone has access to it. We're not some special team that
Exactly. You guys just do it well.
Is able to do something no one else is allowed to. I mean, look how many times Buffalo tried it and failed miserably with a bigger, stronger quarterback.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
it's all about execution.
600 pounds, but it's execution. It's a whole team play though. As much as it looks at like it's just the center and the quarterback, there's a lot of moving parts there.
And you're putting a lot of risk in for offensive full start. Like it's a play that has to be timed and executed to perfection. And if it isn't, now you're losing those 5 yards. So
I won't be surprised this season at all to see Philadelphia run a lot more fakes of that this year.
Yeah.
We've done it before. And there's been a couple plays where they line up as tush push and that entire defensive line cones into the center.
Yep.
And it ends up being a fake handoff and then a pitch to the outside. I could see that happening a lot more this year.
Pitching counters are going to be huge for it.
Yeah.
So.
But
yeah.
Anyway.
All right, Charlie. That's about as much time as we have for the episode. If we do have any listeners out there, thank you very much for making it this far.
Thanks
we
for
appreciate
stopping by.
you. Yeah. And we hope to see you
and
on the next one.
Yeah, we'll be talking a bit about fantasy and getting into some mock drafts and what we can do to help you guys win your leagues.
Yeah.
So go Birds.
Go Colts. Bleed blue, baby. All right. We'll catch you on the next one.